Well, fight week is upon us here in Las Vegas, UFC 264, the trilogy, Conor McGregor against Dustin Poirier, along with Brett Okamoto and Marc Raimondi, Michael Eaves here. And Marc, let me start with you. So many questions about this particular bout, not in terms of how it may play out, but what could happen afterwards. Let's start with the fight itself. The expectation, we'll see a different Conor McGregor than we saw the last time when Poirier got the TKO.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the huge question coming into this fight, right? I feel like McGregor has way more question marks around him than Dustin Poirier did, because the last time we saw both of them, McGregor was on the floor and Poirier was celebrating that victory. So I think for McGregor coming in, there are many things that you have to look out for, whether it be the leg kicks that were so effective for Poirier in that first fight, to, has he become too much of a boxer? You've heard coaches and analysts say, like, he's a one-dimensional striker now. He used to kick more. He used to have more of a karate stance. He used to be more mobile. So many different things that you can look at that, maybe when we see McGregor in the octagon on Saturday night, you can say, okay, this is maybe the guy that beat Eddie Alvarez and became the two-division champion a few years ago in the UFC.
Brett, last time we saw Conor McGregor face someone he lost to prior to was Nate Diaz, right? And then the second time it was a different Conor McGregor than the first fight. He ends up getting the majority decision, but it was a quick turnaround for this fight against Dustin Poirier as well. So again, from your expectation, how much would that affect what we see from Conor McGregor?
It sounds like such a cliche thing to say, Michael, but I expect the best version of Conor. I really do. And you bring up that Nate Diaz thing. I mean, I remember the big thing about that camp was the rower. He had a rower sitting there in his front room, and he rented a house here in Las Vegas, and they were on the row machine. It was just going. You could even hear Kavanaugh, I think before the final round, said, "We're just on the rower, Conor. We're just on the rower." And it all kind of that's one way to symbolize it. But it was just, he was so committed to that fight, man, and he did have to dig deep in that fight. We talk about Conor's lack of cardio all the time. He found it in the fourth and fifth rounds of that fight. That was actually kind of what won him that fight. So there is a history there of seeing the best version of Conor McGregor in the second fight after he's lost. And I think that the indications are already there. I mean, you see the things on Instagram. He looks like he's in phenomenal shape. And he kind of has that edge back to him. We haven't seen him yet in person.
Right.
But some of the stuff that he's posting on social media does seem like a little bit of the old Conor McGregor is back. And look, this fight is so high stakes for him because if you look back over the last few years, you could kind of make excuses for him every step of the way. Well, he fought Khabib and lost. Well, look at who Khabib is.
Correct.
Fought him after a long layoff. Then he came back and beat Cowboy Cerrone. Then he lost to Dustin, but that was after another long layoff. There is no excuses here. If he goes out and loses to Dustin Poirier twice in 2 fights, span of 6 months, 7 months, I mean, what can he say? I mean, at that point, it's Conor McGregor is not the guy that we remembered him to be.
Let's go to Dustin Poirier, because Conor McGregor obviously overshadows every opponent he faces, maybe outside of Khabib, obviously. But for Poirier, he admits the first time they fought, he got caught up into the mental games that Conor was playing with him. It affected him physically in the cage. Second, in the rematch, that was not the case at all. He was clearly the better fighter. How much confidence do you think, Marc, he takes into this third fight against McGregor based on what happened in the last one?
I think that Poirier started to build his confidence against McGregor really in that first round back in January, when he was able to take those McGregor left hands and remain standing, remain in the fight, get to that second round, and then once those leg kicks really started to land, those kicks to the calf, landing over and over again, Poirier, I think, just you could almost see it in his face. He was, he was doing a little pointing, he was landing hooks, and you could see in his face that he was gaining confidence as the fight was going. And I fully expect that it'll be that version of a confident Poirier coming into Saturday night.
Brett, you look at the history of trilogies in the UFC, and it seems like most of the guys that are favored end up winning the third fight outside of Daniel Cormier against Stipe Miocic. He's going to be favored in this fight. Poirier is, at least as of right now. Do you think that impacts him whatsoever, considering he's always looked at himself as somewhat of an underdog?
No, I think, just piggybacking on what Marc said, yeah, his confidence is up. And one of the things that he didn't mention, Marc was talking about all the offensive things that Dustin did. He also took Conor's punch. And I was talking to his coach today, Mike Brown, and it was, you can have all the confidence in the world, but when you're going against a guy that slept you, that's in the back of your head.
Yeah.
That's in the back of your head, that this guy punched me one time and I went down and did not get back up. Can I take that punch? And I think by going out there in that first round the last time, and he took some big shots from Conor McGregor, and he was not fazed by them at all. So I think now going into this fight, not that he didn't know that in the second one, but going in, he knows now. He's like, no, I can take Conor's best shot. This guy is just a man, and he was a kid the first time they fought. I mean, you go back and you look at some of those clips. Dustin Poirier was a child the first time he fought Dustin Poirier. He is a man now. He has a lot of confidence, and I don't think it matters what the betting odds are. He's just so far removed. I don't think it matters what Conor says, any antics that Conor has. I think this guy's coming in. He's going to do what he wants to do, regardless of what the circumstances are around him.
And if he wins on Saturday, there'll be 20 wins in the UFC for Dustin Poirier. He'd be the third fastest fighter to get to 20 wins. But Brett, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier. what's at stake for both of these fighters? Dana White has already said the winner of this fight will likely get the title shot against Charles Oliveira, and then you win that fight, and all of a sudden, look who you are. Let's look at it from both fighters' standpoint, the magnitude of what this fight will mean for them Saturday.
I think for Dustin, it's about, look, he had an opportunity to take the title fight. It was offered to him. He said, no, I'm going to take the money fight, which is what all three of us standing here would have done. Everybody would have done that, right? But there is risk in that, right? Because Dustin Poirier has worked his entire life to be a UFC champion, and now he put it off to gamble on himself to make this payday. So I think for Dustin Poirier, it's about not losing what was sort of already his. You know, that belt, a lot of people, myself included, said he should have just been the champion already. He should be the champion right now. So it's a risk that he's taking. And even though it was an easy decision because of the money involved, it's going to sting a lot if he loses that title shot. And for Conor, I think it goes even further beyond that. Like I said earlier, there's been some excuses that you can make for him. If he loses this one, the excuses are done. And then it's not that he can't come back and be a UFC champion. It's not that he still can't have a good career after this. But I think our expectations will be very lowered for Conor. I think we will say, this guy's an entertainer. He's great for the sport. Yeah. But I'm not, until he shows me that he can beat these elite guys now, you can't expect him to anymore.
Marc, on that same question.
Yeah, I mean, I think for McGregor, it's such a huge fight because if he loses here, he becomes a guy that, kind of like a Nate Diaz category where, he may not challenge for a title again, but he has fun fights and he makes money and we all watch and we all talk about it and it's fun. But if he wins this fight, he can fight for the title again. And if he gets that, no one has ever won the UFC lightweight title twice. No one's ever done that. So he would make history by doing that, and then he would really cement himself, like I think Dana White told you the other day in the interview, that one of the best of all time. Which maybe right now after that Poirier loss in January, people are not thinking of Conor McGregor as one of the best of all time. And for Poirier, I think it's the biggest fight of his career, because I mean, look, I think the title fight is really important. He wants to be the champion, but look, all respect to Charles Oliveira, who's the champion right now. 2 wins over Conor McGregor to me means more for Dustin Poirier's legacy, not just his bank, not just his checking account, but also his legacy, because more people are going to be watching this fight than we'll be watching the Charles Oliveira fight. Again, all due respect to Oliveira, but to me, biggest fight in Poirier's life, not just because of the title coming, but also because beating McGregor twice. That's a career milestone right there unto itself.
And you can also make an argument that maybe this is, as you said, the biggest fight for his career, but maybe the most pressure-packed, because sure, you want to fight for a title, but if you win this fight and the money that comes with it, you will fight for the title. Maybe that could be even more pressure for a fighter in Dustin Poirier's position, which, again, just adds even more intrigue to what we're going to see on Saturday. Brett, Marc, appreciate the time as always. We look forward to UFC 264, ESPN Plus pay-per-view Saturday night.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus.